Okay, now of course we're going to see the three states of the economy. Remember, we said that the economy can be in three states. Can be in a recessionary gap, an inflationary gap, and a long-run equilibrium. Now, each of these states can be identified as a point in relation to the, to two PBFs in relation to the physical production possibility frontiers and institutional production possibility frontiers. So each of these states can be identified as a point in relation to a physical PPF or physical production possibility frontiers and an institutional production possibility frontiers. Okay? Now, what actually is meant by a physical PPF or physical production possibility frontier? So let me mention this point over here. Remember, that each of the three states can be identified as a point in relation to a physical PBF and an institutional PPF. So physical PPF production possibilities frontier and an institutional, of course, PPF institutional production possibility frontier. Let me define, a physical PPF and institutional PPF. A physical PPF represent the combination of goods and services that the economy produces given the physical constraints What are those? Of course, we're talking about fully employed resources, fully employed resources, and to a certain level of technology. These are the physical constraints. What about an institutional PBF? An institutional PBF represents the combinations of goods and services that the economy produces given the physical constraints plus an institutional constraint. Of course, what is meant by an institutional constraint? Of course, an institutional constraint is anything that prevents the economic forces from producing the maximum output that is physically possible. An example of an institutional constraint. An example of an institutional constraint is the minimum wage law. So an example of an institutional constraint is the minimum wage law. What does the minimum wage law do? The minimum wage law specifies that workers must be given the legislated minimum wage, the law that is legislated by the government. So, must be paid at least the legislated minimum wage. So, what are the consequences of this type of law or minimum wage law? Of course, one direct effect of the minimum wage law, the legislated minimum wage, is that workers who are unskilled or unskilled workers, whose their value to employers is less than the minimum wage, won't be hired, won't be accepted to work. So what that means? It means that you're going to have fewer workers. So fewer workers means less output. That's why the institutional PPF, the institutional production possibilities frontier, is located lower than the physical production possibilities frontier. Okay, so let's write the things that I explained. An example of an institutional constraint is the minimum wage law. Okay, this law specifies that workers should be paid at least the legislated minimum wage. Of course, as I mentioned, that one direct effect of this law is that workers whose value to employers is less than the legislated minimum wage won't be hired. Employers will not hire those workers or those unskilled workers, actually. Okay? So this means lower workers or fewer workers means what? And fewer workers means less productions. That's why the institutional PPF is located lower than the physical PPF. Let me illustrate, the things that I mentioned over here graphically. Okay? Let us illustrate the above information graphically. Okay, now, of course, that's what you get over here. This is good Y. And this is over here, good X. Okay? Now, this is here a concave downward PPF, which is now, this is the institutional PPF. This is over here. Okay, over here. This is here physical PPF, and over here institutional PBF. Great. Let's have 3 points in this, graph. Okay. Now let's have here point K, L, Y. Okay, you have 3 points, K, L, Y. K is a point below the institutional BBF. Okay. L is a point along the institutional BBF. And then you have, of course, here KLM, no, KLM. KLM, okay? K is a point below the institutional BBF, L is a point along the institutional BBF, and then M is beyond the institutional BBF. So the point K indicates, okay, or represent the state of the economy that is recessionary. So point K represents an economy that produces an output below the natural real GDP. So the state of the economy here so the state of the economy here, that is at point K, is a recession gap. What about point L? Now, point L represents an economy that produces the natural real GDP. So the point along the institutional BBF is a point that represents the economy that is in a long run equilibrium. Okay? That economy produces the natural GDP. So point R represents an economy that produces the natural real GDP. So this economy is in long run equilibrium. Equilibrium. Great. Now, what about point M, which is beyond the institutional BBF? Of course, point M indicates an economy that produces a level of output that is greater than natural GDP. So the economy in this, point represent, of course, an inflationary gap. Okay, the state of the economy at point M is the inflationary gap state. Okay, so point M represents an economy that produces the level of output that is greater than natural GDP. So the economy at point M which is beyond the institutional PBF is in an inflationary state. And this is actually what, of course, point M represents an economy that produces the level of output that is greater than natural GDP. So the economy at point M, which is beyond the institutional BBF, is in an inflationary gap state. Great. Point N. Okay, great. Okay, now, of course, let me just recap what I said just a while ago. Okay, let me erase the blackboard and then remember that the economy, according to classical economists, will move always in the direction of long-run equilibrium, reducing natural real GDP. So, according to those economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, the full employment output, that is the natural real GDP, is the norm. It's the norm. So if the economy, according to those economists, those classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, according to those, if the economy is in a state of illness, that is in the form of an inflationary gap or a recessionary gap, then the economy, okay, through changes in the wage rates and other resource prices, will move to long-run equilibrium. So the flexibility of wage rates and other resource prices, such as the price level and the interest rate, will play a critical role, in how the self-regulating economy works. So it's important to notice that. Therefore, according to those economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, according to those, the economy will always move to long-run equilibrium. So because of this view, they have advocated a policy that is called a laissez-faire economy, or a non-interference policy. They advocated, a policy that is called a laissez-faire, okay, or a non-interference policy. According to this policy, the government, does not have any management role in the economy. So according to this policy of laissez-faire, the government does not have, any management role in the economy. And this is according to those classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating. So therefore, if I could, just recap what I said, just write the main points, okay? So I could say here that the economy according to classical economists the economy, according to classical economists, will always move in the direction of long-run equilibrium. So this is the movement of the economy, according to the classical economy, will always move in the direction of the long-run aggregate supply, producing what? The national real GDP. So full employment output is the norm, according to those classical economists, okay? So therefore, the full employment output, national GDP, is the norm. Okay? Is the norm. Therefore, as I said, this is the case regarding those classical economists. So those classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, of course, as I said, the full employment output is the norm. Is the norm according to what? To those economists, according to those economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating. They also, as I said in the introduction, that they also believe that the economy will always heal itself, from any, illness state. The economy will always heal itself from any illness state in the form of, a recessionary gap or inflationary gap. Okay, and also the flexibility of wage rates. Remember, the flexibility of wage rates and other resource prices, such as the price, of goods and services and the interest rate, will play a critical role in the self-regulating economy. So let us now look at let's look at the short run and long run, okay, when there are changes in the self-regulating economy. Okay, now here, look at this heading over here, looking at the short run and long run when there are changes in the self-regulating economy. Okay, this is the heading over here. So let's consider the graph below. Consider the figure below. This is the figure over here, where the economy is initially at long run equilibrium. Okay, this is what you get over here. This is price level of real GDP. This is aggregate demand. This is short-term aggregate supply. And this is the long-run aggregate supply. Long-run aggregate supply. This is point 1 over here. This is Q1 equal Qn, where Qn is the national GDP. So initially the economy is at long run equilibrium at point 1. Now what happens now? Consider an increase in aggregate demand. Of course, the increase in aggregate demand could be because of an increase in consumption or investment or government spending and so on and so forth. So when any one of these, components of, aggregate demand changes, then aggregate demand will change. So now an increase, that is, aggregate demand shifts to the right. Okay, that's shift to the right. A, D, this is 1, this is 2. Shift to the right. So we move from 1 to 2. Okay, now, what happens in the short run? In the short run, the increase in aggregate demand causes an increase in the price level. The price level, the initial price level is here, P1, okay? And Qn. This is Qn over here. Okay? Now, in the short run, the economy moves from 1 to 2. So, as a result of the increase in aggregate demand, the short run changes is that the price level changes. The price level increases, and the real GDP increases. This is Q2. Okay, so here real GDP increases. Hear that? So, as you see, in the short run, the increase in aggregate demand causes the economy to move to point 2. So, therefore, the short-term effects consist of an increase in the price level to P2 and an increase to real GDP to Q2. Okay? At the Q2, the economy, the economy is in a state of an inflationary gap. So at Q2, the economy is in an inflationary gap. So this is a state of illness in the economy. As I stated in the introduction, that whenever the economy is in an illness state, in the form of a recessionary gap or inflationary gap, in this case here, inflationary gap, then what happens over here? Then, the economy, of course, through changes in wage rates and other resource prices, will, heal itself, will move to long-run equilibrium. So here, economy is an inflationary gap. So when we have inflationary gap, that means we have what? We have a shortage in the labor market, which means that the wage rate will increase. That implies wage rate increases because of a shortage in the labor market. So now, as you can see, when wage rate increases, as you can see, the cost of production will increase, causing the short-term supply to shift to the left. This will cause short-run aggregate supply to decrease. That is, it shifts to the left. Okay? So that's what you get here. Short-term aggregate supply will shift to the left. This is, short run aggregate supply. This is 1, this is 2. Okay, move to 3. So in the long run, when it reaches here, the long run is supply, then we are in the long run. So let's see the effects in the long run. So in the long run, the economy is at point 3, reducing the natural real GDP. Actually, we are going back to the, the output that we originally started, because we initially started at Qn. So now we are back to Qn. So in the long run, the economy is at point 3, reducing the national GDP. The economy, the output, we initially started the output we initially started. So now the conclusion is that, but notice that over here. In the short run, of course, an increase in aggregate demand will result or will cause, an increase in the price level and the real GDP. However, in the long run, the increase in aggregate demand will only cause the price level to increase, P3. So in the long run, as you can see, we move to here and we move to here. In the long run, the only effect of the increase in the aggregate demand is an increase in the price level. So in the long run, the only effect of the increase in aggregate demand is an increase in the price level. There is no change. Output is back to Qn, natural real GDP. Okay, so so the flexibility of wage rates and other resource prices plays a major role, of course, in the how the economy or how the self-regulated economy works. So the flexibility of these wage rates and the price level play a critical role in that process. Of course, when the wage rate changes, then of course the economy moves back and forth, to eventually reach the long-run equilibrium, because the norm of the economy is full employment, real GDP, which is here along the long-run aggregate supply. Okay. We could also, consider, the economy when, of course, is, the other case, but let's, stop over here. And here we showed that the short run and long run of course, when there are changes in the self-regulating economy. So we'll end here and we'll move to, of course, talk about solving problems in this chapter.